It's just awkward.
Yeah, never assume.
So you have to,
Can't assume these days.
so you don't have a niece or a nephew. You don't know what to call them. You know, you can just refer to them
Good
third
evening.
person.
It's Monday, April 1st, 2019. This is the Sutton School Committee. Call the meeting to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is the Citizens Forum. Please limit discussion and comments regarding individuals so as to avoid violating any individual's rights. The floor is open.
Now's the time.
No?
You can only comment now.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. The minutes from March 18th, the bill schedules from March 21st, and the bill schedule from March 28th. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Sorry,
Any discussion?
it's one of those days.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item is to approve the art field trip. Mr. Bailey?
Before we get really deep into this, how many of us get to go?
All of you.
Spectacular.
Thank you for allowing me to come in this evening. And 2 years ago, I approached you to receive permission to take some students to Italy. And 27 went last April, and we had a wonderful time. It was flawless. It was a perfect trip, in all honesty. And so I thought about doing it again, and I won't take too much time tonight, but I had a few students come to me about a month or two ago and said, Mr. Bailey, they had been to Italy, and now they're going to be seniors next year. How about another trip? And I said, well, I've been thinking about it and thinking about it. And so we talked about it, and I said, let's go for it. So your packets are there. I think, did you get the information? You have the information,
Yeah.
correct? Okay, thank you. So what we're looking at this time is France and Switzerland. And we would land in Paris and tour Paris on the second day. And basically, I always kind of plan these trips as an art and architecture trip for art students, but I allow students in grades 10, 11, and 12 to sign up. And last year when we had those 27 students, they came from all different interest areas, and they had a wonderful time. I had my art students bring sketchbooks, and photography students bring their cameras, and for those that didn't, they could use their phones. So we start out in Paris, and then we move on to Versailles and the Palace of Versailles. Architecture, beautiful architecture. From there, we head down to Lausanne and Geneva, Switzerland, where there's a lot of architecture is beautiful. We also go through many medieval towns that have their little villages up on the cliffs, and that all looked really nice. And then move on to the French Riviera on the southwestern coast of France, overlooking the Mediterranean. And in Nice, France, there's two museums. One is the Henri Matisse Museum and Marc Chagall Museum, two separate museums, and both of those people I plan projects in my classroom around, so it really works well. So it's three museums. It's the Louvre and the Matisse Museum and the Chagall Museum. And then the information packet that I gave you I shared the educational objectives of the trip and the meetings before the trip in February, March, and April. I have students, we meet at lunch. They bring their lunches to my room, and then I give them information about each of the cities that they're going to be traveling to see, so that they have some background information on them. So when they get there, they say, oh yeah, we talked about that. I also listed the cost of the proposed trip. It's a little more expensive than the Italy trip. Prices of all trips have gone up. I travel with, I have to share this with you too, Passports Educational Travel Company out of Auburn. They used to be in Spencer. And they are, that name was given to me by Christina Tamalo, who's the athletic director of the high school, because she traveled with them several times before. And she said, they're a few $100s more than the other companies, but she said, everything is done for you, and there's nothing left undone so that there's any questions. And I will share this too. When I signed up with them and we had the 27 students sign up, they sent me a check for $1,200 just for booking that trip. So I took that $1,200 and used it for the transportation to and from the airport from the school to the airport and back from the airport back to the school. So that was one less expense that the students had. So that was perfect. So I hope they do that again. Estimated number of students and chaperones is 6 students to 1 chaperone. So it's nice. It's a nice small group. And I also mentioned on the second sheet here, I gave you the itinerary. If you'd like one in color, I have one for everybody. If you prefer to have that and look at that. A luggage check would be the night before. But also, this is most important, no student, and this was the same with Italy, no student travels alone at any point at any time. Even if they're going to the men's room or the women's room, they have to take somebody with them. There's limited free time, but the limited free time that they had before, they really used well, and it was all safe. And I just want to share one thing with you, not to take any more of your time, but the tour guide that we had in Italy, he said to me about 3/4 of the way of the trip, and he met us in Venice when we landed at the airport, and he said, Sammy's and Susie's over here. So he'd done his homework about Sutton. But 3/4 of the way through the trip, he said to me, Mark, where are you people from? And I said, Sutton, Massachusetts. I know that, but where are you from, Mark? And I said, why do you say that? He said, you people sheltered? And he said, I've been doing this for 20 years, and this is the truth. He said, I have never seen a group of students like this. I said, in what way? And he said, they're respectful to each other. They're respectful to you and the chaperones. They're respectful for me. They follow all directions. They don't try to get out of the hotels at night. You have to go chase them. And I said, well, no, they're supposed to be like that. And he said, in 20 years, I've never witnessed a group like this. And he said, yet they still have fun. So I think that's a compliment to parents, the school committee. It is a great community to live in. And when you get those compliments when you're finishing up a trip, I think it's a great testament to what we do and the students that we have. I mentioned the emergency procedure. Should anything arise that is an emergency, I would immediately contact Mr. Friend, Mr. McCarthy, and of course the parents or guardians of those students in question. And at all times, they have to have a copy of their ID, a passport copy, address, flight information. All the information travels with them in a little packet that goes around their neck underneath their sweatshirt or shirt. We didn't have any issues on our last trip, thankfully, and I hope that we would not have any this time either. So tonight I ask your permission to allow me to open this up to students and take advantage of this opportunity.
So first off, I want to say thank you for bringing this opportunity, because I think any chance for the students to get to see the world wherever they travel can just spark that interest, and it's a whole nother level of learning. So I really appreciate that you're doing that. And as you said, some people might look at it and see the price, and it's a few dollars.
It is.
But when you look at everything that's included, it's really hard to get a trip like that. I think most of us couldn't do that outside of the education realm. So to get that with all the meals included, the transportation, the tours, the flight, the room, it's actually a pretty reasonable price. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and piece with that, the level of detail and planning that you put into the trips to make them not just educational, but just incredible.
Well,
is,
thank you.
Really
You
comforting.
want it to be, they're spending that money, and their parents are allowing them to go, and you want to have those kids have every opportunity to take advantage of every aspect of there and learn as much as they can. And we certainly did that on the last trip, and hope it'll be the same. I'm sure it'll be the same on this one if I have permission to do so.
I would do the Orsi over the Louvre, but other than
I'm sorry?
I'd do the Orsi over the Louvre, but
Oh.
you know.
Do you have an idea of roughly how many students?
Well, I just had a basic interest meeting last week, and there are 45 that came. Now, all 45 won't go, obviously. However, last year, we had the 27, and Passport said to me, if you can get 20 students to commit, we'll make this a private trip for just Sutton High School students. If 10 commit or 12 commit, we have to go with another high school, which was okay, but I prefer to go with my own students and keep it unto ourselves. And so that's what happened. And so we were all together. It was just Sutton students, chaperones, and our tour guide, who was born in England, raised in Germany, and lived in Italy. But he was phenomenal, and the students loved him. And some of them have been corresponding back and forth with him since we got back last year, so, and I have as well. Great person, so.
That's great.
Is there an upper limit? So ideally, the lowest amount you'd like to get is 20, but is there an upper limit, a cutoff?
No, passports would love to have as many as possible, and they said if
Okay.
we have to fill 2 buses, we'll fill 2 buses, so, no, it would be perfect.
Okay.
I move to approve the art field trip to Paris, Switzerland, and the Riviera as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mr. Bailey.
Next item is discussion on middle school, high school start time.
So I put this on the agenda because there's a dad and mom who have been talking to me on a regular basis about this, and I thought they were gonna be here today, and they're not. But I do think that we should at least start the conversation about when we start school for middle and high school students. I provided you just a brief article for you to look at. Obviously, this would mean a change in our contract. It would mean changes in a number of areas. And so it's informational tonight, but I think that our district learning team or our vision committee should be looking at this information. And again, it's one of those things where for many people, the start of school is convenient for getting their children to school so people can get to work. But if all of these organizations, all of these medical experts are telling us that having kids start school at 7:30 in the morning is really not ideal for kids learning, we should at least talk about it as the school committee, and we should talk about it as a community. As you can tell, lots and lots of communities are talking about it, but it's not a simple process. If it was a simple process, you wouldn't have 65% of these communities engaged in discussion. Obviously, one of the big things is the after-school, sports, work, and any number of things that impact after-school activities. So I just put it out there, made you aware of it. I was hoping those parents are gonna come and talk to it. They didn't show up tonight, but I'll make sure this is an agenda item for either district learning team or the vision committee.
Yeah, there's a bit of information out there, other states too, I was pulling it up. A lot of good information, a lot of good
Interesting.
studies too.
Interesting just to see the improvement over grades in first period classes. As,
Yeah.
you know, I know some of those documents are tailored towards pushing it back, but at the same time, you do read a lot of very positive
And
information.
I think it all goes back to evidence-based practice and children and how they normally grow and the process in which things happen and when they happen and how that all goes with circadian rhythm. So it's huge. I mean, think about how many kids, 6, 7, 8 years old, how you know I'd be up at 6:30 in the morning? How many 12th graders do you know up at 6:30 in the morning?
Right.
So I think it's definitely a good point to ponder. And again, education should be child-centered, so this is huge.
Looking forward to the discussion.
I just don't want it to be a long discussion. I think we can find things appropriate and make appropriate actions if we need to. That's my thought. Don't want to drag it out.
Any further discussion?
Not at this time.
Next item is the fiscal 19 budget update with Nancy.
Any question on the 20? We're good to go? Everybody's good? That was number 7.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's-
The fiscal 20 budget presentation. Getting a little ahead of myself here.
So I'll meet with Bruce prior to the FinCom meeting after April vacation, just to go over some things. The FinCom meeting is the 24th of April. I believe that's a Wednesday night. So if people want to attend the FinCom budget presentation, it starts at 6:30 on Wednesday, the 24th.
Do we expect any changes with any numbers between now and then?
Nothing has changed between now and then, between our last meeting and now. The only thing I would say is if we get new numbers from the state, or if something happens in special education that's unanticipated. Right now, we're status quo.
Do you know, Do they have an agenda for the 24th where we'll sit?
I don't know. Education's on it. We're on
I
there.
think it's just us.
Is it just us?
Oh, really?
Is,
The last 2 years, they've broken it up to over 2 meetings.
It's
And
3
we
this
used
year.
to do BBT, and then they've done separate nights the last few years, so,
Can you just verify and let us know?
yeah.
yeah, I don't know if BBT's that night or not. It's late this year. It's a whole month
Yeah.
later than usual, which is fine.
Now,
Hello. So in your packet, you'll find the year-to-date budget for FY19. There's 3 items I'd like to point out to you. One is on page 15 for the line item for the substitutes for special education in the elementary school. It's currently over budget by $1,872.50. And currently, this line item can be made up within the other schools in the special education substitute line items. And then on page 31, for the ELC for site contracted, that is over by $587.50. And in the elementary school for site contracted, that is over by $1,025. And currently, both of those can be made up between the middle school and high school.
I do just want to make a point
Yep.
for the audience that what we do is we basically divide subs, site contracted evenly amongst all the schools, knowing that there's fluctuation from year to year. This is a common practice as we get to this time of the year.
And then the last item is on page 39 for your special education other. This is the line item that we use for repairs for our vehicles, licenses, renewals, items like that. And this year, well, it's currently over by $449.55. This year, we have had a lot of repairs with our buses and our vans. In the prior year, excuse me, we budgeted this line item at $60,000. And due to prior spending, we dropped that for this year to $42,520. Unfortunately, our spending went higher than the history of the spending. So we anticipate to spend probably another $3,000 to $5,000 in this line item. Our buses are due for inspection over April vacation. So we would like to, I would like to ask the committee's permission to take the rest of the expenses from the school bus transportation revolving account to pay for the remaining repairs that come up. This revolving account currently has a balance of $87,640.69. And we have a projected balance of $100,000 by the end of the school year.
Remind us again what the revenues are for that revolving account?
I'm sorry, what?
Can you remind us again what the revenues
Yeah,
are
so
for
the
that?
revenue is, when we work with other school districts for transportation for out-of-district students.
So it's related to those buses, it's not related to the regular transportation and those fees?
Not the buses from AA, but
Right.
all the special education we have, and our athletic bus. Well, not the revenue, sorry.
Right.
Yeah,
and this is the account that we use to purchase new vans when we need them.
yes,
Correct.
yep.
And we're not,
At this
Looking-
point in time, we do not anticipate having to purchase a van this school year.
Well, we are looking at the possibility of purchasing a van for activities.
right,
You were talking about this, I reached out to Millbury, they have a van for I'm just telling you, this came up in a conversation several times about having, for like the golf team goes to a match, or the tennis team goes to a match, and we have to pay for transportation to come in and do it. Districts now are looking at buying white vans, and the coaches transport the kids. So we had talked about this about a year ago. We're looking at that again now because we want to make sure that it would make perfect sense for us to do this for these small, we have these small field trips that go, so for instance, the trip to Cape Cod for the National Honor Society. We could use a van for those 3 days. It could all go down together. We're not renting a bus. We're not using those expenses. So we're gathering that information, and we want to, and I called the superintendent from Millbury and how they do it. So we have some conflicting information. but it's something that, you know, we'll bring forward if we think it makes sense. It would be a combination of this account and potentially the Booster Club funding from sports to maybe share the cost in purchasing this, because it would benefit sports as much as other middle school and high school activities mainly.
Would that be like a 14-passenger?
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
14,
Pretty
15
good
passenger
size.
van, you could fit, you know, tennis rackets in the back
Mhm.
or other things like that. Another example would be like ski club, you might, you know, have an overflow and need a van or something to go up, you know, there's a variety of reasons we could use it. The sticking point is being able to have coaches be able to drive the vans, or teachers to be able to drive the van under our insurance. So that's the sticking point we're trying to work out.
Yeah, we had talked about that last year, and it was if it was a white van or less than a certain size, you didn't need a CDL, which is a whole different license.
Correct.
Right.
In terms of this request,
Mm-hmm.
in the past, we've seen analysis that shows the buses and when you anticipate replacing the years of them. I don't know whether we did that last year or not.
We did.
We updated it
Yeah.
last year. I can give you an updated one for this
Yeah.
year.
I am a little curious. It would be helpful
Yeah.
now, because as we talk about eating into that 80,
Right.
having a
Yep.
sense of when do you think
Sure.
you're gonna be
I can get
replacing
that to you.
buses? Because if the money's not there, you're not gonna replace buses, you're gonna have a problem.
Right.
Correct.
And so
Yes. We'll provide the mileage on each van and each bus. We can provide that at our next meeting.
And how much are you looking for to take from this revolving account, or is it to be?
Depending on the amount of the repairs, I think it would be between 3,000 to 5,000.
So where are we in the life of the bus? As,
I didn't bring it with me. I can bring it to the next meeting. But, you know, this
The
isn't
buses are all relatively
Yeah,
new.
I
Yeah,
think
that-
most of
that's-
our fleet is pretty new.
Yes,
We've just
I thought
replaced, I think, the oldest van
We've
last year.
replaced a van in every
Yeah.
year the last
So
two
what
If we
years.
don't need to do this, can we get the years?
Yes,
I mean,
we'll
I
get
just,
Sure.
I
Yeah,
get it, it's
sure.
small money,
Yeah.
it just seems
Yeah.
like
Yep, sure.
it's part of the
Absolutely.
questions,
No,
right?
I can bring that to the next meeting.
If we need it, then.
no, it's good to,
No, I think we're
good to
fine.
know.
And if you remember, this was a line item that for several years was $80,000. And then we got it down to $60,000, and every year we don't spend. This year we cut it down to what, a little above what we normally spend, and we just went over a little bit.
Do I hear a motion?
I don't think there's a motion.
Yeah.
There has to,
Sorry, I was asking, can we delay the motion
Oh.
and vote on
Until we
it
get questions.
when we get the
That's
questions
fine.
answered? Unless,
Okay.
unless there's an emergency and you need the money
No, no, we
now.
don't need the money.
okay.
So we can do it next meeting.
I got a quick question, just about the wastewater treatment plant. Refresh my memory on what we did most recently with it in relationship to this budget. Sorry.
We'll put that on. I'd have to go back and look
Yeah,
at,
I might have it. I think Roger was the last one to update on the wastewater, if I remember right.
we'll get you the latest, where we stand with the wastewater.
Right,
loan.
right.
Yeah, Roger updated on the, we can get that to you.
Right.
Get that
And I
information.
know as far as membranes, that's on the capital plan, correct?
We have the membranes in. It's the stainless steel containers that hold the membranes that are on the capital plan.
Okay.
When they come in, that'll all be updated. But again, it's something that this community is gonna have to deal with in the next 3 to 5 years. And it'll probably be dealt with through the capital plan, because it's gonna be some
Big stuff.
expensive. But again, there's a lot up in the air.
Yeah. That'd be a great
May
project for one
there-
of the engineering departments around.
Well, in May, there's gonna be a vote to run sewer up to the center of town here. So if that happens, then I think the conversation becomes, what do you do? Do you then eventually run it down over the next 3 years down to the school, or do you repair the existing system?
Right, and consider the fact that you've got gray water system and that you use 3 wells, and that if we tap all 3 wells for fresh water for toilets, you're gonna run out.
Well, that would be all part of the conversation, that's correct. And whether you have to sink another well and all of those things, but that would obviously be something that would have to be studied.
Mm. So I'm just saying, I think it's a great project for a local college to take on.
Well, WPI took
Yeah.
took on the initial
Right.
study to run it up to the center of town.
Okay, we'll push the bus maintenance issue to
We'll
the
push
next
the
meeting.
bus down the road a little bit.
Okay, and then Nancy, the next item is the repairs to the basketball courts?
Yes, so,
Yes.
so we met with the basketball league and so it's a real collaborative effort. And so the rec basketball and the men's basketball league are ponying up $12,500, and we would pony up anywhere between $9,000 and $9,900, $9,900 to resurface all of the basketball courts, fix all the basketball courts, new backboards, relining all of the property. And what we're proposing is to split the cost between our summer camp account and our building use account to pay that portion.
Did you say relighting?
Not relighting,
Relining.
relining, I'm
There we
sorry,
go. That-
relining.
The lines are in there. I didn't see the lights in there.
And do you have the,
Yep,
Revolving.
so the school use account currently has a balance of $18,286.18, and the summer camp account has $28,374.60.
and we're heading into the spring season when all the dance recitals use our facilities, so, that's when we get a big bump in our revolving account for building use.
Can we,
I look at this, it makes sense. I mean, I know the summer camps, they use the basketball courts. We're taking the money that we generate revenue from to spend it right back. And then when you look at the youth league and the men's league contributing as well, I think that's great. And it's a community asset, so I'm in favor of this.
What will be the time frame?
This spring.
This spring?
So once this gets approved, the people that did the tennis courts, that same company will be doing this work. Westboro,
Tennis.
Tennis, yeah.
yeah, so they're the ones who are,
Remind me when those basketball courts were resurfaced. I mean, when they put that new asphalt on there, does anyone know?
03?
Was it that long ago? Okay.
It was
So
right
they're
before the Sutton 300, wasn't it?
Okay.
Unless they've done it since.
It
since-
felt more recent.
hasn't been
Don't-
done
I
since
don't-
I've been.
Yeah, tennis
No, I know the
courts,
tennis
yeah.
courts, but the basketball courts were done
I
at one
think it
point.
was right before the Sutton 300.
Okay.
It hasn't been done in the 9 years I've been here, so.
I make a motion to approve the repairs to the basketball courts using funds up to $9,900 to be taken in equal portions from the building use account and the summer camp account as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
I was just gonna say about building use. Can we talk about building use at some point?
I can put on the agenda, you're talking about the fee structure.
Fee structure.
So we can certainly add that to the agenda to look at our current fee structure.
Sorry, guys.
No?
Yeah, I think it's important.
We will get, we'll get comps from area communities and what the fee structure is, because we haven't looked at it in probably 4 years. So we can look at that and bring that to the committee's attention at our next meeting.
Next item is approval disposal of surplus property.
So this is equipment that we no longer use, and they want it off the stage. And I don't have it in front of me.
It's a Yamaha Clavanova,
Yeah, it's a
and,
Yam,
upright
And an
piano.
an upright piano.
And nobody wants
And they're all
senior
over
center,
25 years
Nobody
old.
can use anything?
No, so one of the things that we're looking at is, once it goes through this process, there's a whole process you have to follow, then it goes on a bid list and everything. And then if nothing happens there, there's a company that you can trade this equipment with. And so the music department has looked at that, and so if no one claims it, we're gonna look to that company. They take these things, they repair them, and then you get ability to trade and work with that company.
Have we kept up these pianos, or have they been shoved to the side?
I have no idea.
Okay, just curious.
We got a new piano with the new building project, but I don't know the history of all of the equipment.
Okay.
I know that they keep up on all of the equipment, I
Yeah,
just,
that's, I assume, but, okay.
Would you like to make a motion?
I move to approve the disposal of surplus property as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item is to discuss and vote on the 2019-2020 school calendar. In our packet, we have all 5 draft versions of the schedule. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I make a motion to adopt draft number 2 as the 2019-2020 school calendar as presented amended.
Second, that way we can discuss it.
Second.
What's the difference between 2 and 3?
The difference between 2 and 3 is whether you have school on the 30th of August or not. That's the major difference between the two. We have so many drafts. The difference between 4 and 5 was the PD days up front. And I tend to think that it's important to have the PD day up front to let the faculty
Yeah.
situate things for the beginning of the year and get a strong start.
I kind of ranked these 1 through 5, and number 4 I felt was, besides number 1, I felt number 4 was kind of out of the running for me.
You don't like 4?
I have,
2,
I have
3,
to
and
say,
5, I thought
I don't like
all
any
have,
of them.
but
I like
We know
one the
that.
best, but I rewrote it. I looked at it and I said, you know, you could shift it around, give yourselves March vacation, and you could couple things, take away the 30th, you'd still have the same number of days, you'd have equal time in between breaks. First half of the year, you'd have equal time of 8 weeks and 8 weeks. Second half of the year, you'd have an equal time of 10 weeks and 10 weeks.
I don't think people are ready for March vacation
Oh,
yet.
come on.
As much as I'm in favor of it, I don't think people are. I think
I
we
think
need to
it's a-
give a little more warning on that
I
one.
think it's a great
Mhm.
idea.
I think it's a great idea too, but I think in fairness, I think we need to.
it definitely has merit, but we don't have a March
Yeah.
vacation calendar.
Yeah, and I'm not comfortable going back with the full February vacation. I think it's going in the wrong direction, so.
I think we've had a number of town folk, parents, school superintendent, teachers, all in favor of it. I'm in favor of putting February vacation back in.
I'm where you're at. I wish there were, we could move to March. It's not possible in Massachusetts. I feel less and less strong about February. I feel very strong about blocks of contiguous time.
And
And I think
that's,
this cuts into that. On the other hand, while I've gotten feedback in both directions, I will tell you more feedback has been in favor of February. But I don't think it's accurate to say that that's where everybody's mindset is at.
That's agreed.
no, and
I'm also a little interested in the 30th. And I like that sort of last summer vacation. But I think that the dates we're looking at are always optimistic, that 180th day. And sort of if I had my druthers and was, you know, accepting the fact that February fits in the calendar in Massachusetts, why not 3 where you go to school on the 30th?
I have 3 as my first choice as well.
just a caution. In the contract, both Michael and I were unaware. We thought it was, you could only start the Monday before, but it also has in the contract, the STA contract, that we would not have school on the 30th, or
Well,
the,
that's a good reason for 2.
so, we could impact bargain, or we could not impact bargain, but have that part of the negotiation next year, just to take that out so that we're not, at this point in time, having to make a decision and then have a memorandum of understanding with the union. So
Mhm.
just need to have that information.
I think part of our argument also for we didn't want to try to end the school year on a Friday, assuming we are going to have a snow day, 2 snow days. We're going to be into that following week anyway. So regardless of ending on the 10th.
or the 11th.
So,
Yeah, I don't think trying to pick the day of the week makes sense.
No.
I think trying to finish as early and have the 180th day as early in June as possible
Yes.
makes sense.
Yep.
I am still rather concerned about the value of the days in June with the weather and all the rest and anything you can do to pull that forward. I think we've also heard all sides, all answers, you know, oh, they don't, it's hard to keep them focused in June. No, they can focus in June. It's, you know, they're ready to come back in August. No, they need the weekend. I mean, I think I've heard every debate under the sun.
I'm more in favor of, as I said, having something, obviously it's not our option, having something in March, or at least considering that, just because if we're talking about, it's all about the kids, and to me, it's important to have time on learning and consistent time on learning. And so I'd rather develop a schedule that is revolving around that, and that to me is the number one issue.
Interestingly, I looked at the 2 days in March, the half day and the no school day, and thought maybe you start to cut into some of those and
That-
have
and-
more days of school in March.
Yeah. Yeah, and I could show you, I got a great calendar, shift it around a little bit, you know, lose no PD days, start at the same time, end at the same time, and you get a full break in March, and like I said, I think the consistent time on learning is important.
I like the idea of March, but I think that's probably at least 2 years away. I
I'm just
don't think we're
concerned if
there
we go
yet.
back to February and April,
Well,
that it just becomes a non-existent
so,
conversation.
so the idea to take away February was the concern about the snow days. And the idea is we want to try to get out and leave more of a buffer.
Yeah,
I
my
keep-
concern's always been just, it's time on learning and reducing the choppiness of the schedule and a schedule based on agrarian conditions that we no longer do.
And there was more to cut in February. We cut February in hopes that more communities would move towards
Yep.
March,
Yep.
and they haven't. We cut February looking at the calendar, looking for contiguous blocks, long
Yep.
periods of time. I think that there's a great deal of value to it. There isn't a surrounding communities or a state push that way. We've tried it, and I think we've been swimming upstream. I agree with you,
Yeah.
but I don't think practically it's working.
The only other community that has this is Auburn.
Mhm.
Superintendent from Auburn reached out to me over the weekend. Where are you guys on? And there's a huge push in Auburn as well to go back to February vacation. And the problem is we're an island, and we all of my colleagues all wanted to go in this direction, but there's so much pushback on this.
Right, but does that
It's-
make it right?
I'm not saying right or
And
wrong.
so,
When I-
or does that make that appropriate? Does that make that the appropriate decision?
But when I heard all of the arguments the last meeting, a lot of them resonated with me. And we, you know,
But
we can't ignore that if you have school and no one else has school, and at different times, you have to take into consider programming that takes place outside of school for families. But until the state takes a leadership role in this, and the state, I mean, it's the previous conversation about the school start times. It's like moving heaven and earth to make what common sense would say,
Right, but you can only do what's right in your own community, and you're not gonna be able to change the state.
But I don't know how we prove that's right. I don't feel like we've seen a major benefit in the past 6 years that we've been doing it. I couldn't argue
I don't
in
see-
favor of it either, saying not having it has done us
I
a
don't-
huge justice.
I mean,
And
that
I
was
still
the
look back
question.
when we decided, one of the things we talked about was, there was a person on the committee that said, she had mentioned, you know, we're always concerned about the time away from school. Why are we trying to make the summer break even longer?
Yeah,
And that held merit to me as well. So I look at it, I don't want to get out June 5th.
yeah,
and I
well,
don't
I'm not
necessarily
try- I'm
believe
try-
that the
trying
kids-
to make the calendar shorter. In fact, I think we should have more time on learning, and
Okay.
I'd love to see
And I
school
also
longer,
don't
so-
necessarily believe that the kids check out right away in June. I think maybe the last week. Now, if that last week gets pushed out, they're always gonna
But-
check
but-
out then.
But that you can address. You can address by doing a lot of what we're considering as far as 21st century learning, and we can change our approach, which I think is huge. Look at how much we've engaged the seniors as far as internship programs, because we've
Yeah.
stepped beyond what was normal.
Nobody said June 5th. Nobody
No,
has said
I
June
don't-
5th. It's an
No.
exaggeration.
That is an exaggeration,
And there have been
yes.
lots of people who have
Yep.
mentioned all of June,
Yeah.
not the last week.
Yep.
Right? I mean, I think we're headed in the right direction, but
Yeah.
I think we also are coming back again next year. We should talk about negotiations
Mhm.
on the 30th. I think we should continue every year to try
Yeah,
to find ways to set objectives and choose calendar changes that support that.
I agree.
I just don't think that in this environment, holding to the February piece is really beneficial.
The other problem we have with the schedules for next year is that Christmas and New Year's fall on Wednesdays,
Excellent.
which makes those weeks difficult to.
Sure. Oh, there was one other change on, we've added back in, there was a half-day before. On December 20th, that has become a full day, so
Okay.
we made that a full day.
On draft 2?
On draft 2, on all the drafts.
On all of them, okay.
On all the drafts.
I'm an advocate of a shortened February vacation, but I had a teacher say to me that February vacation is very important because that teacher takes that week to plan out her class schedules and what she's going to teach for the rest of the year, and has found that losing that time really does affect what she can accomplish the rest of the year in scheduling. And while I think that teacher is an exception to the rule, I think that's an extremely valid reason to have a February break. And if more of the teachers were doing that, I think that would be fantastic. But that having one teacher tell me that, and I know that's what this teacher does. I would be an advocate of putting the February vacation back in, so.
I think also the February vacation where we've said not a full February, but done just a couple of days. I think there's been reasonable comments that it leads to people pulling out, losing a couple, 3 days. Again, I don't endorse her, but there's a
Teachers.
practical element of, if you do 2 out of the 5, does it really make the remaining 3 far less effective? And if your objective is effective days in the school, you're not getting that.
And if there are teachers that live in different towns and their children are out of school and they use personal days, and you have substitutes in those classrooms for those remaining 3 days.
Interestingly, I have insulted a few and thought, yeah, okay, but I don't know if it's about that for me, but for sure, I mean, there are a lot of people who have to figure out how to take care of their kids on those days.
But that's not unlike the rest of us when
Right.
other things happen. So, as I said, it all comes back to me and the kids, and I would love to have a chance. Obviously, I'm not happy with any of these, and so it would be. But I'd love to see that we look into this more. I want to know the impact on learning. I want to see those numbers again, because I think I asked some questions. I don't think I ever saw all of the numbers that you guys were talking about, because I had asked for the whole month of February
Yeah.
in general, because I know people were saying kids are out sick. The bottom line
And
is,
I
if you have,
apologize, we gathered all that information. I forgot to include in the packet, I apologize, but we
So-
did gather all that information for you.
I
A
just,
couple weeks before, a couple weeks after.
I just love to see that, because I just don't want us falling back because it's the convenient thing to do, if it's not the appropriate thing to do. That's my concern. And you know how I feel about vacations and school vacations, and so.
Not going down there, are we?
Yes. How to say from that.
Well, we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded for draft number 2. Do we have further discussion, or are we ready to vote?
Ready?
All those in favor of accepting draft number 2 for the 2019-2020 school calendar?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. And it will be draft number 2.
So Ted, we
Really,
have-
it's the calendar now, it's not even
Calendar.
draft.
It's the
That-
calendar.
The
I
thing.
think it can all be wrapped into exploring school calendar, school time.
I think that'd be good visual.
We have summer retreat.
Summer retreat, we could spend a
Summer
week.
retreat.
Perfect.
It is gonna be a week.
Next item is to vote school choice seats for the 2019-2020 school year.
So I've provided some information for the group. I have two proposals or two ideas that I'd like to recommend to the committee. One is to increase openings for grade 9. Again, I think it's a start to a new school, and we will have openings and we'll have available space in grade 9. So that's one. The other thing that in looking at school choice, we previously amended the policy to allow kids who are in the school district in high school to remain in the school district. And what I'd recommend in dealing with school choice is expanding that back to grade 6. People that have been in the community through elementary school, they move to Millbury, they move to another community, allowing those students to stay in our school district. First, it doesn't add to the numbers of students, and secondly, they are a product of our current school system. They know the system, they know the rules, and it's a way to maintain, unfortunately, the funding source that we've become accustomed to receiving each year through school choice. Yet I think it'll have less impact on the school district as a whole.
Legally, can we put those parameters on it?
I believe we can.
And also, what if somebody rented an apartment here for 4 months in 6th grade? And then does that fall under that, where
When they
you
move.
basically could ride out through senior
Sure.
year?
Someone could choose to, I've
I
seen
mean,
everything,
that
I've
could
seen
be okay with me,
everything.
But I'm just saying,
So I was under the impression it's somebody who's been in the system
well, and that's what you'd like to think, but
K6. Well, can you legally make
I
that
don't know.
requirement if you've been in the system?
If you're in the system, I think if you make the policy that if you move out of town, once you're in 6th grade or older, I think it applies to anybody.
You can't set it. You've been in the school system for 4
3
years, 3
years,
years,
right.
8 years, anything like that. I mean, it strikes me as it's all, I had the same legality question. Can you put them in front of the line or give them preference or not even set numbers for them? And if that's the case,
That's
why
what-
couldn't the regulation be if you've been in the district for 6 years,
And you move out of town.
you can stay at that point?
I'd like to get legal opinion from our attorney, just before I put that parameter on it.
That's a little bit more commitment to the school.
It also speaks to the notion of now you've got a student who's been in the same school district, and
Mhm.
it's going to be, it's a tough choice, right, with all the extra commute, but at least you keep a consistent environment for the child.
It's the hardest conversations I have with families. They've been in the system for 6, 7 years. Something happens, there's divorce, and all their friends are here. And so, that's what's in the best interest of students, that's something to consider. Sometimes people that choose to use school choice, there are reasons why they're looking for school choice. So again, I'll research this, I'll talk to our attorney, find out if we can put year parameter around it, and make sure we're in good legal standing, and come back with a proposal at our next meeting for that.
I presume the answer is no. The other question is does it become available for all students, or would you have the right of refusal on a student?
See, I think then you become, then it becomes a, I don't believe you can pick and choose. I think once you
No.
make,
I can't.
I don't like
I
that
don't think
kid,
you
so
can.
he's out. I don't think you can do that.
I don't think you can either. I think you
Matter of fact,
sort of,
I know you can't do that.
well, you can't remove somebody after they've started if you're offering that.
Correct.
And
Eh,
just,
While you're paying for the service, just to verify, because this is a slightly different piece here. Be worth knowing.
Sure.
I'd like to also know what, if there are ramifications on the special ed side too.
Should be the sending town assumes the cost, right?
So, yes, so,
Here.
no, at the end of the year, we fill out a form in special education. So if you're taking a school choice student that needs additional services, we fill out a form, and there's a formula that they use to get reimbursed. So we've had some students that come in on school choice that need a one-on-one aid. So at the end of the year, we will receive compensation from the sending town for those services through circuit breaker.
Is it 100%?
Yeah.
It covers the cost, yes.
Because if it's not
Is
100%,
that, yeah, then.
then it's not worth doing it.
That's risky.
Right.
Well, and that's,
But that's.
as long as you have the student, it's not
But
for,
when you do school choice,
you're in,
you can't pick and choose.
for a
Right.
penny.
So that's the pros and cons to school choice. That's why I'm saying my only recommendation this year to the committee would be grade 9. Our high school is built really staff-wise to have approximately a class of 100 students. We have 4 teachers per discipline. And so with the number of kids going to BVT, I would say that adding anywhere between 8, opening up slots between 5 and 8 students would be appropriate. If we weren't reliant on the funding to support our school district, I would say I wouldn't add any school choice.
So I'm a little more worried about that, right? I mean, I think the last few years, we've been in pretty good shape. The notion of school choice to help balance the budget, I think should set off red flags in the back of our mind around, that only feels good for a couple of years, and then it's a problem.
All I'm saying to you is, we build a budget. It's the reality that we live in. And I wish I could say, had a crystal ball and say, oh, we're gonna be good 5, 10 years from now. I don't have that crystal ball. We're good right now. I don't think what I'm hearing coming out of the state, I hear local politicians say one thing to me, but I'm not so sure the reality of the state in Chapter 70 and the funding formula is going to look at Sutton and say, oh, we need to give these guys more money. It's a necessary evil that we've gone down this path years and years ago.
Or we say no for 3, 4, 5 years, and we change the reality of a district that,
Slowly wean yourself off it.
yeah, and it will mean at the loss of some items, right? But
But if you look at the number of students in these grades that are coming up, with the number of kids that are going to BVT, I mean, it's possible to have classes of a grade of 75 kids in the high school, and in the not-too-distant future, having 4 grades of 75 kids.
Right, probably in the next 6, 7, 8 years, that's potentially where we are.
we're 180, 220 a year in school choice, 150.
Well, it's probably gonna be about $300,000 this year.
So every year we have a fairly large number. You think we're gonna actually have spent 300, or how much of it will we?
We probably have $250 of regular school choice and another $50,000 of special education school choice money. So that's why it's more. Next year, we lose 9.
Last year, I think we opened up, I wanna say it was 6 or 7,
Right.
and none of them took it?
Just a couple, I believe. I don't have that
So
number
we
in
had
front.
opened a bigger number and
Looks like
not as
one.
many.
One.
That's the
One.
requests.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, that's requested.
requesting
That's
for
the
next
request
year.
for this
Oh,
year.
that's a request
Yeah,
for this
last
year.
year's request, I think we opened up, it was like 6 or 7, and I think the final return was like 2 or none took
Yeah,
I
it.
think you had
So
3 or 4
just 'cause
fill
we
out,
open
but
it
didn't take
doesn't
it.
mean they're gonna take it.
I think what happens is, kids say, I don't wanna go. It's
Mhm.
not that I don't wanna go to Sutton, I don't wanna leave my friends, and so they
Mhm.
put their name in, I don't want to mess with numbers myself. I think we get in a bind. We add a couple here or there in the other grades, and then we have 4 families move into the, there's a lot of houses for sale in Sutton. You have 4 families move into 1 grade. Now your class sizes that we're trying to bring down to 20, and now back up to 23 or 24.
And you give up those degrees of freedom I talk about around, if you need to be able to move things around, it's a little harder. I mean, you just don't know, is the reality.
And the fact that you can't interview, that always makes me nervous, that you're just a small school to begin with, introducing elements that change the school. It's not 3 or 4 kids makes a difference in one classroom.
It does.
Somebody like to make a motion?
I move to approve opening 8 school choice seats in grade 9 as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
Ted, why are we picking 8?
100. To bring the total potential class size to 100. That's all. Could be 5. Do I anticipate having 8 kids join our school district next year out of school choice? No, I don't.
You've had
I don't anticipate 5. I don't anticipate these 5 attending. I would say you're more looking at 2 or 3 kids. Right, tell you what we pick up school choice is families. I know a family that's already emailed me. They're looking at housing in other communities. They have 2 students that will be in our high school next year, or one's already in the high school. That's where we get our school choice numbers. That's how they've built up. That's why I'm proposing looking at going back to 6th grade. It's the cleanest, easiest, simplest way to deal with the issue of school choice, in my opinion. So having it 5, you can cap it at 5. I don't anticipate getting.
I assumed it was, you had 5 requests and 3 is, like the commercial says, the best number in the world, so 5 and 3 is 8.
on the idea too, if you're starting back in 6th grade with school choice and you have known entities in the school and it's worked so far and you want to hold on to them instead of introducing unknowns.
And kids in a consistent environment, it's gotta be.
Exactly.
The kids are able to make it work.
Yeah, that to me is key. We've always wanted to put the kids first and, worry about their well-being, and if we could continue their education, that would be ideal. Again, I just want to check legally first.
Sure.
Before we make that amendment, that we're not doing something way
We
off
shouldn't
base.
Violate someone's civil rights.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a child who's having difficulty, the students that struggle in school or have some type of emotional problem or something, but we've known them for years, we're better prepared to help those students. When students come in from outside the district in 6th, 7th grade and they're struggling, we have no history with those students, we have no knowledge of those students, and it's more difficult to pick up the pieces in those situations. That's why I'll look at whether we can expand that down to 6th grade.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, there's the motion to approve 8 slots, school choice slots in grade 9. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item is the first reading of policies JJF, which is the student activities accounts, DH, which is bonded employees and officers, DGA, authorized signatures, DD, funding proposals and applications, and DBJ, budget transfer authority. I do have some questions on these for clarification. The bond, DH, bonded employees. I assume that there's a blanket bond through the town.
We don't know the answer to that because we believe that where we don't handle the money, it comes out of the town. So we're going to investigate that. Nancy and I were talking about that this morning. So we'll find that information out for you prior
Okay.
to our next meeting.
And I also have a question on authorized signatures. The first sentence scares me.
Which one?
The one that says the chair of the school committee or designee and the superintendent or designee will sign payrolls presented for proposal. As the chair, I really have no interest in doing this, but I don't think this is the practice. So I'm trying to figure out why it's in a policy. It's the authorized signatures policy.
I'll gather more information on that for you for our next meeting.
Can I get on my soapbox for 2 seconds?
Sure.
Chairman is a gender-neutral term, and it's a term of
It's chair.
honor. It
Yeah.
says chairman, and it's being changed to chair, I assume because it says man, and that's implying a man. Firefighter, fireman turned into firefighter, not a position of honor, although an honorable position. Chairman is not gender-specific.
Is that somewhere in this policy?
No,
Well,
it's
we
being
took the time to
deleted.
change
The other
chairman
ones.
to
Where does it-
chair,
Chair.
and I assume in the interest of making sure that people understood that gender has nothing to do with whether you're a good chair or chairman or not.
When I
I'm
looked
back
at that I'm sorry, when I looked at that this morning, I'm just wondering if this is grants and other aspects, so I'll
I
find out.
don't know,
if
it
you-
says specifically says payrolls.
Yeah, and it would probably be fine if it's at school committee or the superintendent.
DD.
Yeah.
God, these
Yeah,
glasses are
interestingly, I
helping.
wonder if we were supposed to have been signing them for some time.
You haven't been signed.
Well,
I haven't, and I have no interest in doing that.
I will find that out.
So, okay. All right, so please review and submit comments to Di so that she can
It's on the wrong
add them in for the second reading at the next meeting.
And they're online. You can get them, if you pull down the meeting packet from tonight, you can get to them.
Yes. Next item is the superintendent's update.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, Stories to Stage, very, very successful again. And I want to thank Green Bean for coming in and do that work. It adds a different dynamic to our school district. Grade 1 just recently did a STEM activity focusing on light, and the students got a chance, the first graders got a chance to play with the light and see how it behaves and reacts to materials. In the elementary school, the Boston Museum of Science brought on a traveling field trip for grade 3 with the Sound of Science program, and in grade 4, wind, water, and temperature. In 7th grade, the 7th grade met on Wednesday, March 27th, to discuss elective choices in virtual middle school. So they've done a survey, and so now they're going to start scheduling kids into their electives. The ASA grant, we met with those people on last Monday. We were very, very encouraged. We're going to find out this week if we received that $58,000 grant. I've never been to a grant like this where they recognize that the grant was written very vaguely, which has made me nervous, but they were on board with this. You know, we put in $25,000 for materials. We gave them a kind of a loose idea of what we want to purchase, but they recognize that how do you know what you want to buy before you build your curriculum? And so this grant opportunity will provide professional development for our engineering teacher in our middle school. We'll offer 4 different electives, and I'm pretty confident we're going to get this grant. I'll know this week, and I'll let the school committee know. The high school, as you know, hosted the Connections Conference, very, very successful. And today was the first day with 80 of our seniors doing internships. So very, very exciting. The internship fair, if you can put in your calendar, is May 20th. It will be great to have school committee members attend and members of the community to attend. It's quite an affair.
Said it's a Monday?
I don't have my
I thought it was
calendar.
a Friday. I'm just making,
Thursday last year?
I thought it was
It's later
Thursday or
in the week.
Friday. Yeah, it was the end of the week. I just want to make sure.
It's May 20th.
Okay, you're
So
positive.
I don't know what, it's
Yeah, it's
definitely
a
May.
Monday. All right.
What's the timing on that?
It's usually in the morning from, I believe, 9 to noon. Really easy timing for people who work to be able to come out and
Perfect.
attend.
Yeah.
It is great, though, if you can make it.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Really
great.
impressive.
Special education, I haven't talked about this, but we are being audited. We're always being audited, but it used to be called the CPR, the Coordinated Program Review. They changed it to make it sound nicer. The tiered focus monitoring. So that's basically an in-depth look at all of our procedures in special education. They'll be coming out to meet with us for a couple of days. Actually, just one day, 2 people coming on Friday, May 17th. They'll conduct interviews with us. They'll go through our files. A lot of it is done now electronically. I'm not the least bit concerned about this. I'm sure there are a few things that we need to tighten up that they'll point out to us, and that's why you have audits. All special education parents will receive via email a non-identifiable survey to complete and return. Anyone interested in more information or who would like to speak with the DESE representatives during this process is encouraged to contact the special education department. Facilities, I'll remind you that we have these new hot water heaters in the high school. I've talked about, there's 2 of them, and they have these heat exchanges. We did receive our second heat exchange. Both of them were free because they were under warranty. The tanks do not need to be replaced, so we'll up those up. It does cost installation. The second one installation is going to be a little less than $3,000. So we'll have updated our brand-new high school and middle school hot water heating system. It is what it is. But certainly kudos to Roger Raymond, who stays on these warranties, stays on these people. The other thing is there are some units on the rooftop. Roger's been diligent with those people, and then that company is, I give that company credit. They went into the business for a short period of time putting these rooftop units on. They were kind of a startup company, and after doing it for a couple of years, they realized we don't want to do this anymore. But they've been stand-up folks. They have not, this place has been up and running now for 4 or 5 years, and they're still coming back. They're still trying to work through all of the bugs with us, so kudos to them, but kudos to Roger Raymond as well. And if you've been out at the school, starting to work on setting up the outdoor spring sports, ground cleanup, softball field's in a little bit of tough shape at this time. That's all I have.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, I have important dates, I'm sorry. So, last Monday, oh, by the way, I thought about this. I've never had the Susan Dame come out and speak to the committee, and I think that's a big mistake on my part for all these years. So I'm gonna annually have Susan come in, who's the chair of the art department for the district, to have her come out and speak. So she's on the schedule for our May meeting, so she can talk to all the wonderful things instead of myself trying to talk to it. But the high school band performed at Mechanics Hall last Monday with a group from Wisconsin, a colleague of Justin Falva from UMass, who runs that group. It was quite a performance. This Wednesday night, April 3rd, our high school band concert takes place, and then the next day they head off for their trip to Washington and Williamsburg. So Wednesday night, 7 p.m., great show. School calendar update, UMass Amherst Conference. Oh, coffee with the superintendent is April 10th. I had some feedback from parents saying it's difficult for them to get there during the day, so we've changed that to April 10th to 4 p.m. I'm gonna make sure that gets on my calendar so I don't go home or go to a baseball game or something and not
Make
be
sure
there.
it's just
Yeah,
coffee.
It makes it, I've thought about that. Calling it something different, but I don't
Cocktails and
think,
tea.
I don't think I'll do that.
Probably have a few people
Tea,
show
it's
up.
tea time.
Tea time, well,
Tea
yeah,
time.
it's
I'm-
British.
I'm British.
Mhm.
It's not on my
5 o'clock
calendar.
somewhere.
Coffee with superintendent. Okay, 4 o'clock. PM. And that's all I have.
Thank you. New business, agenda items, action items. I'd just like to echo the band concert with Tomah High School from Wisconsin was outstanding. Two bands that played extremely well. You wouldn't have known which band was which. They were very comparable in how they played and how they appeared, and it was just nice to see how well our kids welcomed these folks. We got a chance to talk to some of the parents who came, and couldn't say enough about how our kids welcomed these strangers in, and showed them good old New England hospitality. So, and the music was fantastic. So, kudos to Mr. Valvo.
Yeah,
Just to echo on that, I'll say every time I've seen the band perform, you know, external to the school, they're great in the school too. But Mechanics Hall, I constantly hear feedback on the Clark tournament about the band. So that's a real source of pride, is the band for our school. So thank you for mentioning it.
Can I just add, I'd love to see, I should say, on the summer retreat stuff, talk about gender and gender and policy, school use, if we don't get to it sooner than that, the calendar in general, and also start time. I just don't want them to fall by the wayside.
okay. I would just make one exception to that.
Okay.
I think to determine different rates for unless you want to talk about something different than rates for
Well,
building use?
I guess, rates are ultimately part of it, so having that, on camera is what we need. Agreed.
Was there something more to it that you wanted to talk about?
No, it's just more I want to talk about it. So, on
Okay.
camera's perfect.
Okay. I just
As it
want to
should be.
just,
Yeah, no,
you just
that's-
described the
that-
full day.
That's, it's a week. It's a week of stuff we got. I'll plan it.
I presume you're gonna add an item to the agenda where we'll talk about summer items?
Yeah, and dates,
We will.
summer dates,
I've got a couple notes.
sooner
for
rather than
retreat
later would be
items.
good.
We'll put that on the first meeting in June.
I've got a running list in my notes here.
I'm with you.
I have one more thing that we just need to be aware of as a committee, and I did talk to Mr. Friend about this, but when there are day trips, field trips for certain groups, we can't send out approval forms for parents where it says traveling will be provided by carpool with juniors and seniors driving. That just, well, I'll say that cannot happen. The liability that you're putting on a junior or senior if something goes wrong is not right. You're putting them and their families in a very bad position that could be life-changing, and certainly have a financial impact on those families and not the school system. If there's gonna be a field trip, it's not the responsibility of the upperclassmen to transport underclassmen to anything like that, whether it's a practice or anything that way, a game that the bus didn't show up. That's not the responsibility of those kids, and that practice cannot continue.
So that practice started with the golf team, I think, going up there.
I think that was going to practices, and I would say I think that's something different if kids are gonna carpool to a practice, but this was a practice where a permission slip was sent home for parents to sign, and it said juniors and seniors will be driving. And I don't believe that the school can mandate that juniors and seniors should be driving other kids. And my kid was a senior, and I told him absolutely not. I have 2 kids. I only want to be responsible for 2 kids. And if something goes wrong, that's on my insurance, and I'm not willing to accept the responsibility if something goes wrong that way, and shouldn't be put in that position, and neither should any other parent or student.
So for sure, it's gotta be part of a parent decision. I just wanna make sure that we've looked into, and if it's not appropriate, it's not appropriate for any cases. I don't know the circumstances of that one, but I
This
think
was a
that,
baseball practice at the NEBC in Northborough.
so I also think that if we need to change the policy, I don't necessarily disagree with it, but we do that as an agenda item.
Okay, but it needs to be put on the agenda.
I-
'cause
I'm-
this-
I'm with you.
We
I
can't
don't-
have this practice, because,
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think it's worthy of discussion. I disagree with the approach.
okay. Anybody have anything else?
I'd just like to say that the Stories to Stage, as Mr. Friend already said, was excellent. It always amazes me that such young kids under 5th grade and below can make me laugh like that and really are entertaining. It is a blast. It's amazing.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
I